What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Wednesday night, and we're gonna do some pork chops tonight. Pork chops, pork loin. Just took them out of the fridge. They've been in there for 10 hours. I put a basic couple ingredients, 3 ingredients. I put salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic. Been sitting in the fridge now for 10 hours. Gonna let them come to room temperature or outdoor temperature, and then I'm going to throw them on the grill. And in the oven right now, as we speak, I have potatoes baking, big potatoes. So we have a possible rail strike coming, possible, and if that happens, it'll be devastating. Within 3-4 days, we're going to notice shortages of pretty much everything, especially food stuff, food products, produce. We'll know tomorrow midnight, Friday midnight. That's when they go we're striking or we're not striking. But if they strike, it's going to be bad. And you can't have the big rigs pick up the slack. There's just not enough. Logistically, it's impossible. I'm a big fan of big rigs, though. Peterbilt, Kenworth. I wish I could have one of those for cruising around. Get a nice 2023 model year. Stick shift manual transmission with the analog dashboard. Looks like a 747 in there. And a room in the back. Yeah, love those trucks. That's why I go to the truck stop so often. But freight trains, love freight trains. Always fantasize. I mean, you can't do it now as an adult, they'll arrest you. But when I was a kid, I should have done it. Should have done it when I was like 10. Run alongside a freight train when it's pulling in, you know, and they're going like, 10, 12 miles an hour. And run and get on one of those empty cars, or even in between. Get in there and go for, I don't know. I remember that Frosty the Snowman, when he wanted to go to the North Pole, they bought a ticket, and he was with that little girl in one of the box cars, and she was shivering like that, and then he said something like, you're gonna catch a cold, or some reference to catching a cold because it's cold outside. And I go, even the cartoon is giving misinformation. You don't catch a cold because it's cold outside. You catch a cold because you came in contact with a rhinovirus, which there are like 220 of them, maybe more now. That's how you catch a cold. If you sterilize your environment and it's like 10 below, you may get frostbite, hypothermia, but you will not get a cold. You're not going to catch a cold, because that's not how you catch colds. But there are people still, they repeat to put on a hat. My father was like that. My father would say, put on a hat, you're going to catch a cold. And then if you didn't put a hat on, and then like that evening you started to cough, he would get all angry. I told you to put a hat on. It's like it makes no difference for catching a cold. Yes, you'll be more comfortable if you're cold and shivering, you put a hat on. You may not get hypothermia or something like that. If you have gloves on, you may not get frostbite, but you could still catch a cold. Cold is a virus. It's not the weather that makes you sick. It's a virus. It's like, I hear people saying it, and I'm thinking in my head, moron. I mean, we've known this now since the microscope has been around. I mean, and especially since the 50s, we've known that it's viruses that cause colds, not the air. So anyway, one time, many years ago, I took Amtrak cross country Amtrak, and I enjoyed it. From here to Chicago, it was a brand new Amtrak, brand new. And I sat next to somebody. I went in the back. I didn't sit at my seat. I found a car that was totally empty, and I was so tired and I fell asleep. And I go, oh, wow, it's empty. And then about an hour and a half, I guess we made a stop somewhere. I didn't notice because I was like sleeping, and I get a tap. Hey, you're supposed to be sitting here. And I look up, and the whole thing is full. And the guy with the ticket, who was supposed to be sitting where I'm, you know, whatever, that was his seat. So I said no. I got up, I went back to my car, and there was one seat available next to a guy that looked like he was like a hippie from 1967, like a Cheech and Chong looking guy. And I sat next to him. I asked him, I go, is this taken? He goes, no, no. He goes, have a seat. Very polite guy. And I want to say one of the nicest people I've ever met. I sat next to him, and we had a lot of conversations. He went all the way to Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So we sat next to each other the entire way, and we talked about everything. And then he had a book on, I forget the name of it. I could look it up, but it was like the book on chaos, the laws of chaos. And I was reading it, and then everywhere we stopped, we would buy newspapers. He would buy like 4 or 5 newspapers, and I would buy 4 or 5, and then we'd switch. Very nice guy, and you know, who knows what happened to him. He was a little bit, you know, maybe late 50s back then, so he was approaching 60, and that was 30 years ago. So I don't know if he's still around. I remember he was a heavy smoker though. He would go to the smoking car, and he was smoking, what was it called, the Lucky Strike, famous 1950s cigarette, Lucky Strike. And then he would come back and he would smell like Lucky Strike, that roasted smell. But yeah, he said to me, if you're ever, he told me his neighborhood where he was. If you're ever in that area, he goes, look me up. I tried looking him up a few times, did not come up. So who knows what happened to him. But anyway, so from California all the way to Chicago, we were in the same booth thing, you know, and we would go and get dinner together. They had these nice cars, restaurant cars, and I was very surprised how good the food on a train is. So me and him went, we sat, and there were like 4 other people on the same table. We didn't know who they were, and they were very polite. And I ordered fettuccine Alfredo. Oh, that was so good. It's like the best fettuccine Alfredo I've ever had. And when I got it, I thought it was going to be like airplane food or hospital food. And they brought it, it smelled good, and I started eating it. I go, oh, this is amazing. This is like gourmet. So met these people, were talking. The next day, the same thing, you know, we had food there. I ordered the exact same thing because it was that good. And then we get to Chicago, and that's where we switched trains. And they gave us this old, beat-up, raggedy, you know, schleprock train. Like horrible. The bathrooms were horrible. The seats were horrible. And so it was empty, so we sat in our own row. So he sat behind me, I sat in front, and we thought we were ready to go, and all of a sudden the door opens up again, and like 50 more people come in, and they sit, you know, next to us. And the dude that sat next to me, he was a young guy, you know, I don't know, maybe like 23, 24, and he reeked like gym locker. And he apologized because I guess he realized that he had that you know, European smell, you know, armpit odor. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry. He goes, I know I smell horrible. He goes, he was a hiker. He goes, oh, we just hiked. And he told me I zigzag all the way up. And I said, don't worry about it. What are you going to tell him? Go wash? He'll pull out a deodorant stick by Menon. So I had him next to me, and the odor was like crazy. And yeah, but I will say a quick story about Greyhound. I used to take the Greyhound everywhere. I was a Greyhound guy. You know, anywhere I went, I would get on a Greyhound. So one particular time, I was, where the hell was I? Albuquerque, I think. I was in Albuquerque, and we were leaving, and there was a couple of seats in the back by the toilet. So I sat right by the window, and then there was one seat available next to me, and this really big, heavy-duty guy, probably like 360, 400, you know, one of those guys, really big. And I go, where's he gonna sit? And I'm wondering, where's he gonna sit? There's only one seat available, it's next to me. So he sat next to me, and I felt like those bean bags pushing me up against the side of the bus. And he had a unique smell. I don't even know what it was. It was very unique. I've never smelled ever that odor before, and I haven't smelled it since. I don't know what that was, but it was like a body odor, but strong. And he sat next to me, and he pushed me right against the side of the bus. And I remember my right side was warm and my left side was freezing. Somewhere along the line, the bus driver shut the heat off, and it was cold that night. And I felt warm on comfortable on one side with all this padding I had, and this side was like freezing, and I only had a t-shirt on. I had no jacket, nothing, and I was just like, it's cold here. I couldn't sleep. You can't sleep in the cold. So anyway, next morning we pulled into some restaurant area, and he got off, and he never came back on. I guess that was a stop. But I've been on the Greyhound bus many times, many experiences, you know. So, yeah. I remember one time we were in Oklahoma, pulled in, and I guess there was some kind of rainstorm, and then everything froze. Cold air came in. There was like a half-inch of ice on everything. The road, the trees, they were all covered in a layer of ice. And we were on the Greyhound bus, and the Greyhound bus went to take a left, and we slid and ended up on somebody's property. It was crazy. And then we pulled into a McDonald's. My mother would say McDonald's, but it's McDonald's. I almost said McDonald's. Now she says McDonough, like it's a girl. So we pulled into this parking lot, and the McDonald's was all the way up at the end of the parking lot, and the bus just couldn't get traction. So he stopped at the front there, and he said, yeah, this is it. He goes, you guys want to get something from McDonald's, just walk. And I get off the bus, and every 5 steps I took, I would go 3 steps back. Took me forever. Finally, and that was my second time at that McDonald's, or third time actually, after another. But I went in there and I ordered my meal, and then I walked back and I ate it on the bus. And then we left. But I have a lot of Greyhound bus stories. A lot of them. One more story. So this guy was on the bus, leaves Cape Cod. He's on the Greyhound bus, and later on I get on, and I'm in the back, and he has this baby with him. Little baby, was probably like 5 months old. And word got around. There was these black ladies who were very nurturing. Each one of them would take a shift and take care of the child for him, so he could get some sleep. So one would have it for a couple hours, and they'd pass it on to another one, and another one, and then it would end up back with him, and then he'd pass it on, go to sleep again. So apparently he was running away from his wife. Or they were divorced, but she had custody, and then he took the child and was taking it to California. And everybody on the bus knew it, but back then, I guess if somebody had a cell phone, they would have called up and they would have said, there's a guy on the bus kidnapping a child. He doesn't have custody. So, and I don't know how true it was, but that's what the word was on the bus. Anyway, that's what happened. That child today would be like almost 30 years old. It's a long time ago. What else? Then there was this guy who had a son. He had a son and a daughter, and this guy looked like a guy from Texas with a big cowboy hat. He had his wife with him, and he had a son called Zeke. I don't know what the daughter's name was. And this guy was edgy. Everything bothered him. He had a big thermos, one of those, Stanley ones, big one, full of coffee. And every 10 minutes he was filling up that little cup, taking a sip, then filling it up, constantly drinking coffee. And anything the son did, Zeke, this guy would lose it. He'd be like, Zeke, well, Zeke was always like, you know, looking around. His father was yelling at him. So we pull into a rest stop, and he takes his thermos. He comes down. I go to the bathroom. I come out. He's getting the thermos filled up with fresh coffee. I go, wow, this guy drinks a lot of coffee. And it wasn't Sanka brand. It was regular coffee. We get on the bus. He's drinking the coffee. Now it's getting late, so we all, you know, fall asleep. And I wake up about an hour and a half later. I look around, everybody's asleep on the bus. Nobody's awake. And I look over, and there's this guy with the cowboy hat on, wide awake, drinking coffee. Didn't sleep at all. And then another time I met another guy. This is the opposite of that. So he looked like Steve Perry from Journey, but a smaller version. And we were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, waiting for the bus. And all of a sudden, he's sitting next to me, and I see he went and purchased a bottle of NyQuil. And I go, probably has a cold, and now I'll catch it myself. But he didn't have a cold. So we go outside, the bus is coming, and he pulls out the NyQuil, and he starts drinking it like it's whiskey or something. He's like, la, 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 you know. And he explains to me, I guess he felt he had to explain why he's drinking so much. He goes, anytime I travel on a Greyhound bus, I always buy NyQuil, and it knocks me out, and then I wake up when I'm at the destination. And he goes, it makes the trip go like that. And then he looks at me and does one of these, like, you want a sip? Like we're winos or something, like a couple of bums on a street corner. And I go, I'm all set. I'm going to drink that out of your mouth there? I don't think so. So we get on the bus, and I'm like 5 seats behind him. And all I could see is him sipping it like it was wine or something. Every so often, he'd take a sip. He finished the whole bottle. And then he was out like a light. Now, if you want to get knocked out like that, the safer way, without all the ingredients to suppress cough and, you know, fever and all that, antihistamine. You know, get an antihistamine and just drink that without all the other stuff. But anyway, that was one guy. He looked just like Steve Perry, but like I said, a little bit smaller. Yeah. Anyway, there's more. I'll mention them other. I have mentioned another story about a guy who got on in Indiana, and he talked to me for 11 hours. Well, before Indiana, I think he got on a couple of states before that, but he talked to me for 11 hours. His wife and his kids were on there too, and he was telling me, he goes, you know, it's crazy the amount of rent I pay. And he kept telling me, you know, how crazy the rent is that he pays. And this is like the 90s. This is like, you know, 93, I think. And at some point, you know, I said, I'm going to ask this guy how much the rent is. What's this guy paying? I go, $5,000. So I said, what do you pay for rent? He goes, $225 a month. And I go, yeah, that's crazy. That's expensive. That's very low at the time. That wasn't that bad. So he was talking to me. He told me everything about his family, about his wife, about how they eat roadkill, or the family of the wife there. That's where they were visiting the wife's family, and then they were going back home to a town that was near French Lick, Indiana. But he talked and talked, and at one point he stopped for like a minute, and I go, okay, I'm going to get my headphones and put them on, my Walkman, and then he'll realize that, you know, he's listening to music. Put the Walkman on real fast before he could start another conversation. And from the corner of my eye, I could see him talking, and I look, and he's talking to me. So I took the headphones off and had to listen to him for a few more. Then we finally got to Indianapolis, and we all got off the bus. There's a McDonald's there, no, Burger King. We went in there, we got Burger King. Came back on, he started talking again, all the way until we ended up past French Lick, Indiana, in a small town. We pull into this, it was nighttime, huge parking lot, but nothing else. Looked like maybe fields of nothing, corn, possibly. And he says bye to me, and I go, bye, and his wife got up, gave it like a nod. They were the only ones that got off the bus at that stop. They went down below, bus driver gave them their luggage, and they started walking. I go, where are they going? Where are these people going? There's no houses around here. Even with the bus, we drove out, I didn't see any houses, just farmland. So I don't know what happened to him. But yeah, he told me everything, every detail. And, you know, I wanted to take a little break, but he wanted to talk. 11 straight hours he talked to me. So, yeah, I think they will come from Kentucky. think that's what he said. I think he said his wife, yeah, I'm pretty sure his wife's family is from Kentucky, and they eat roadkill. He was telling me about, you know, all these animals they ran over and they ate them, and how the preacher helped his wife quit smoking, and she used to smoke a lot, and the preacher gave her a talk, and that ended that. I wonder how long that lasted. Maybe it lasted forever. But yeah, talked and talked and talked. I got exhausted. It was like 11 hours, but it felt like 50. Anyway, I'm gonna cook the pork chops, and we're gonna eat room temperature.